This is Ben, and this is my education video game review for CSE 688. For my game review, I played Crisis of Nations. This is a web-based strategy game from iCivics, which is an advocacy organization founded by Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor that aims to teach young people about democracy and civic action. The game is played from an abstract overhead world map perspective. The player acts as one of 4 nation states on the game board, and they must work together to solve international crises like famines and things like that. As the game starts, each nation is allocated 8 resource cards. You get 2 each for military, policy, economic, and espionage resources. And in the middle of the screen is kind of a pie chart that represents the resources that are going to be needed to resolve this particular crisis. The type of crisis varies each turn, so the types of resources vary along with that. So for instance, a border skirmish might require more military and diplomatic resources, while some other types of crises might need more espionage and policy to resolve them. Each disaster is a timed 60-second session. It goes really fast. You're really under the gun to make quick decisions. No one nation has enough resources to resolve any one crisis by themselves, so you really have to work together as kind of an international community in order to solve these issues. If you succeed, everyone gets a reward. If you fail, usually 1 or 2 nations in particular is punished especially harshly. So when it's your nation that's dealing with a crisis, you really do have to depend on help from the other nations. So it's on you to garner some goodwill as the game goes along. The catch of the game is that before each main game, you're given a secret goal, which the other players can't see, so you have to amass a certain amount of a particular resource. So like for instance, the first time I played, I was told I needed to amass 15 military resources. This incentivizes each player to hoard some resources while freely contributing others. Another interesting wrinkle is the use solve it mechanic. You need to learn the ways in which you can use extra resources that you have in abundance and that you don't need to be saving towards your goal to coerce the other players to spend a corresponding resource towards resolving the crisis. So for example, if my secret resource goal is to hoard military resources, I may be able to coerce another nation to contribute military resources instead of me by using extra economic resources to provide incentives to them. And that will force them to contribute military resources whether they want to or not. So ostensibly this game is teaching us about international diplomacy. You're exposed to several different types of crisis situations, and you get to learn some of that terminology and also some of the ways that this puts pressures on different nations and how they might try to act as an international community to resolve these situations before they get really out of control. The game does give you a tutorial mode, but it's really exactly like a standard round, and you'll see the same scenarios come up in the tutorial as you do later in the standard rounds. The difference is the game pauses during the tutorial mode and gives you quick tips that kind of guide you through the basic actions and make a few suggestions on strategy. Even though it does give you a tutorial mode, it doesn't give away all the information. The player is left to kind of suss out some of the more advanced strategies to use. So overall impressions, I actually found this game to be a bit frustrating. When I went to log into the game, there was a note that the multiplayer servers are taken offline and you can only play single player. And really, I found playing single player kind of lackluster and not very fun. I can see how playing against other humans would be fun because you would get to kind of strategize against each other and make alliances and cooperate and build diplomatic relationships with your peers. But as it is, the AI is just not very good. It contributes very generously to the crises at the beginning of the gameplay session, but I found that very soon into each session, the AI gets very aggressive in using the use solve it feature against the player and is very good at making you or coercing you to give up the resource that you need to be hoarding. And then they also become very stingy with contributing towards solving the crisis, kind of like a spiral that's hard to get out of because you're not getting rewarded resources for solving the scenarios, and no one is willing to contribute and help you to solve them. Also, I find myself questioning the value of the cultural model lesson that the game is teaching. Do we really want our kids to be looking at international politics in this kind of Machiavellian light in which our country needs to be winning, I guess, as some people might say, and needs to outwit and outmaneuver competitors and force them to spend more resources than we spend? That just seems like an odious takeaway that I don't want our future generations to be going out and representing our nation in the world with. There are definitely some skills that can be sharpened. Kids could be learning to strategize, to negotiate, to kind of form alliances and to analyze complex situations. But given the fact that the multiplayer is not working and only single player works, I would not recommend this game for trying in the classroom.